Done. Fucking online shit is ass kisses. Oops. Recorder's on. When did I turn it on? This thing. Enable waiting room. Join and leave sound. I guess we can have some flight in here. Still didn't work. Piece of crap. Probably recorded. Okay. Delimiters. Okay, multiple spaces. Bingo. Ta-da. All right, 3 of 4. And Well, good evening, everyone, and good morning to Jawad when it gets here. You all look cheerful-ish. Nice. Can you all hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. You're all mutated, so I can't hear you. And today's topic is this thing. And I've been working on it for longer than I had anticipated I would have to, which I guess is just the nature of things. And where I'm at this point, and what I'm going to, before your very eyes, I'll illustrate how to do some of the editing, and then I think I will call it a night and hand all that work off to you. And we'll pick it up again on Wednesday. So what you have on the screen before you, assuming you can have the screen, is our friend Country Club Bayou. And there's red dots and yellow dots and light blue dots and green dots. And if we turn off the backdrop, there is the drainage network model, more or less close to probably how it really is represented. I can take out the need real elevations because I've put in elevations that are realistic. I haven't gone through all the details to get fully faithful representation at each of these junctions. Now, the way I got the elevations is worth seeing because I think it's still on the guitar here. Is I got them using Google Earth. Perhaps you're familiar with this. Google Earth is a lot like Google Maps, although it is a separate application that you download. And what I like about it is down here in the bottom, where the cursor is making a outline. If you look fast enough, you see an outline. These numbers are moving as I move. It's returning estimated latitude and longitude information in degrees, minutes, and decimal minute, degrees, minutes, and seconds, with down to the hundredths of a second of arc, which is actually not very much on the Earth. And as we're moving about, the other value it's giving is the land surface elevation at the cursor. Now, it's not perfect. Let's see a good example. See, I used to go to a restaurant over here. So here we are at the intersection of St. Emmanuel Street and Capitol Street, and it's claiming the elevation's 44 feet. Now, that building due north of the hand cursor is at least 3 stories. So you're looking at 54 feet tall. So it should go to 94 when we go onto the building. And it doesn't, because the elevations that are contained in the image are digitization of USGS maps. So they're not going to pick up things like buildings. It's hard to believe that you could jump off of this building down to the street and literally only drop 1 or 2 feet. If you could do that, I would suggest a future as a cat burglar, although I know there's not that good of a market for cats after you steal them. I never understood how cat burglars actually really made a living, because I have cats, but I'm not willing to pay that much for another one. They'll show up on their own. That's supposed to be a pun. At least some sort of an indication that you thought it was stupid. So that's where the elevations were taken from. And let me zoom out a bit more and get a view of the area. Here's the study area of interest. And then one of the things I hate about Google Earth is that it can't maintain, it does not stay looking down. So the Department of Defense version of this is terrible because when you put the crosshair on what you want to turn into a smoking crater, because of the angle, you get a lot of collateral damage, and that's not good for tax-paying people. So the Hughes Street Bridge that I showed you photos of is here, and I assure you that the railroad bridge doesn't dip down like that, and neither does the actual vehicular bridge for cars. The basketball court that started this whole thing 20 some odd years ago is right in this area, and I would think that there would be a better image of it, but maybe it's gone. I find it sad to think that the TCEQ guys quit playing basketball at lunch. Maybe that was perceived as not professional enough. That's a shame. So there's that pool I showed you, and then the water making its merry way down here. This is a small scale steel fabrication company. They take perfectly good steel and weld it into useless shapes and then sell it. You can see a lot of metal recycling. So from the aerial imagery, this is not garden homes. And then this is the Metro bus barn. So that's another good source of water quality impairment. And the bayou runs under here, picks up a box culvert, and then works its way on down to Wayside, and finally through the country club. Now this part of the bayou here is loaded with these little white spheres that are like coated in really hard plastic. I think they're called golf balls. And then finally, we get out to the end of the study area. So that's where I obtained all the elevations from for the computer model. And if we just arbitrarily look at this, stupid thing, still can't look down. If it did this back in World War II, we would all be speaking German and Japanese. So this is pretty much residential area right here, and it's obvious from the aerial imagery. Here we have get located the always present baseball diamonds. This is a school, and this is the What do you want now? I'm trying to teach class. Do you want to run this swim model, or do you just want to meow at me? I'll get you some food in a bit. This is called the EBK Training Center, and I think that's it right here. That's operated by the city of Houston. So anyway, that gets you some familiarity. So in terms of industry, this area is roughly moderate to heavy industry. Down here is there's furniture warehouses and some more metals. Up here is a railroad yard. There's a bulk sweeteners come in here, and some other food products, as well as methyl ethyl death and various other chemicals. And then if we get north along here, there are some food processing, some metals processing, and a shipping facility here. Somewhere there's a Maxwell House. And whenever you're working in a new city, when you come to a street called Industrial Way, if you're doing environmental engineering, and you can't think of any place else to blame your environmental things on, that's usually a good choice. Terminal, Industrial Way, navigation, street names like that, they weren't named that for fun. That was where they creators of that particular metropolitan area intended for heavy industry to be. There's some tanks there. Okay, so let's get away from the pictures. So that is one source of elevation data. Not the best, but it's better than nothing. And then the way I got distances was using this line measuring tool. Not at this particular scale, but you can measure distances that way. And I've never trusted the polygon. I wonder if it actually gives you, oh, it does do area. That's pretty cool. That would have been handy, and you get it in something useful like acres. Oh, my acreage guesses weren't bad. So this is actually a really good tool for doing preliminary work if you don't have access to other tools. I've successfully made a career out of doing modeling without having access to good tools. And all it means is I get to be stupider, because you don't have to be as smart when you're using these crummy tools, but you have to put in more work, more effort. Okay, so for that, I'm saying for this particular junction, for instance, I've specified an invert elevation of 20 feet. Now, the way I came with that is I pulled an elevation off the map at surface elevation, and I have an interesting piece of information right at Hughes Street. The water pool in the Google Earth map comes in at somewhere between 10 or 11 feet, depending on where you put the hand on the cursor. The box culvert that fills that water pool is at least 12 feet tall, and it's 28 feet wide. It's a 12 by 14, 2 barrels. And then above that, there's easily another 10 or 15 feet of soil onto which the Hughes tool facility was built in the 1940s. So if you take that 11 feet and you add 12 for the, well, let's start at 10. I can do the arithmetic in my head better. 10 plus 12 is 22. Now put another 10 on top of that, that's 32. And that parking lot I know is at elevation 35. So I use those offsets, roughly a 22-foot offset, to figure out where the invert elevations are when we get up into the built area, because all this sewerage is underground. If I go back to my Google Earthage, just pick some part right here, and naturally it goes in, messes with my overhead view. So the sewerage is underground. For example, there is a underground culvert that kind of runs right where the hand is going. And then there's the Altic and Stonewall Junction, which the thing called the vents in the report are about here. And there's a large junction here. And then the underground sewer kind of follows along that way and makes its own way over to the west. There's other sewage running along Polk Street, but they're all underground. And to be consistent with the old drainage prior to the building of the city on top of it, we have to make the necessary vertical offsets. And so I used the known information I have right there. We zoom in a bit more, tell it to look down. It's Google, so it's going to do what the hell it wants because it knows better. We put the hand right in there. It's showing that pool elevation at 11 feet. We come up to the basketball court, we're at 35 feet. So that is the number that I use to offset the surface elevations down to the bottom of the sewer. 35 minus 11 is 24. And I think all mine are showing 22. And as a modeler, you do get the the luxury in the initial model builds to do your conceptual things like that. At the refinement stage, if I were going to present this to a client, especially if I was making $3 and $4 million design decisions, I would take the day and a half it would take to go back and verify each of these invert elevations that it makes sense. But I spent most of yesterday just building this thing and getting it to more or less run. My mistake was I made it too complicated, but I'll be able to use it in the future. And I invested a lot of time, and I'll save you guys the trouble when you do this in the future. So it took me better part of 3 hours, which is really embarrassing, to find out after multiple attempts that I had a couple of these drainage areas disconnected, and it kept throwing a warning, but I couldn't find the drainage area. I'm looking at the picture and I'm zooming in and zooming out, and then later on when I read the warning, it actually gives the subcatchment ID. I felt really stupid, so I immediately got up and left the computer and went and did some gardening in the backyard. And hopefully you will be spared of doing that yourselves. You'll do it someday if you use this tool. Okay, so I don't need to move that around. So that was the first bus. Again, the elevations wasn't hard. Making sure everything connected was really annoying. And then I had a lot of issues, which again, I will spare you. I'll just tell you what the diagnosis was and the end result. When I got down here to the end, so I'm down here at this last conduit. Hopefully I've done some runs. And I would plot a flow. Now that looks like how I wanted it to. When I initially had it, it was going up and down and sort of getting reverse flows all over the place. And it baffled me. And my big mistake was when I built the conduit system, it was doing conduit defaults. So it put these in as 2-foot diameter circular pipes. And we can tell from the aerial imagery that these aren't circular pipes, and they're certainly bigger than 2 feet diameter. As soon as I changed to the proper geometry, all of a sudden I got a behavior that I want. Now, this shark fin shape, I fabricated that. I fabricated that by using this particular rainfall. So 1 inch an hour for 6 hours after a few hours of startup. Again, this is all just, this isn't calibration in the ANA sense, because we don't have much to calibrate it to. This is, you had a name for it when you were getting everything started up. At a few of these, I have some, not subcatchment, I have a little bit of non-zero flow, because I happen to know from when I studied that location that there was always some water in the system. It never went dry. Even in the driest times of Houston, which like lasts for 10 minutes, and then a damn swirly thing comes in from the Gulf and there's water everywhere and not a drop to drink. So I had to put in a little bit of some little teeny inflows to get everything wet. And then I ran the thing for 6 hours. I'm running at like 15-second time steps. So that's a lot of computation. And what did you call that, Anna, when you did your presentation? The spool up or something? You had a name for it. It was a good name.
Are you talking about the spin up?
Spin up. There we go. That's it. So I was spinning this sucker up. So that's all we're at right now. So so we've done spin up, and then I put in a 1 inch an hour storm, and I've adjusted the runoff coefficient to 70 everywhere, which is curve number 70, which is about right for that part. It might be a wee bit on the high side, but we have some large areas that are very impermeable. Okay, so that brings us up to that point. And I showed you what a runoff looks like and whether it actually is, don't do that. A 1,000 cubic feet per second. An inch an hour for 6 hours is actually would be a pretty substantial storm on that watershed. So I don't have a feel for the cubic feet per second because that's an unmonitored stream, but I do know what the velocities should be. And so if I plot the velocities, it's showing around 3 feet per second. And I think that's a bit on the high side according to the report, but it's not unreasonable in my mind. It's quite plausible to me that at the height of a near the end of 6 hours of 1 inch an hour continuous, that the flow velocities in the bayou could be up to 3 feet per second. I could go look at the original report, and there are some drift tracer velocities, and they would be more consistent with behavior down in these ends. Up to a half, maybe 1 foot per second. That seems about right to me. So this is a little excessive, but it's not absurd. Okay, so we've spun up and we've done the best calibration that we can, given that we have no actual flow measurement or velocity measurement data. The next thing I was doing was trying to put in the water quality features. And we bring in our pollutant, and the only pollutant I'm messing with is total suspended solids. And to bring in the pollutant, you have to state what the initial buildup is. And I decided that 10 pounds an acre of solids, I have no actual good feel for that. I just want to get numbers that are big enough to cause a change. And then I have to choose my land use types. And I have a choice of what fraction of residential that corner is. I think it's mostly residential, some food, actually mostly residential and food, no metals processing. Okay, so that was just one watershed. Then I, one subcatchment. And then I wanted to do a group edit and was dismayed to find out the saddest news that you could when it comes to group editing. So I'll just group edit that, edit, group edit. So I want to edit the subcatchment. I want to edit the property. Oh, I can do land uses. Sweet. Okay, I take that back. I was struggling with, am I going to have to do this one at a time? So let me go ahead and cancel that. Let me bring back my base map, and we will collectively, this is good. So we're all going to do this. We're going to collectively decide what the various land uses are, except in the places where it's obvious. We'll manually override those. Save the input file, and then that will be what you all start with your as of yet undisclosed homework assignment. So let's first bring up the backdrop. Load. God, I'm glad I discovered that. In the base map, choose OK. All right. So all of this area, I argue that I want to weight it mostly residential and non-zero values for the other two, just because I think it actually will work better. I don't want a time series. I want the group hug. There we go. So I'm going to leave that white area out, and I will treat it differently. So I'm going to group hug all those subcatchments, group edit. Set the land use. Okay, I think it's going to be 95 for, actually, no, that stuff had more food processing than you would tell by looking at this map. And I have a reason for not wanting to run the metals or either of them to 0. Okay, so we changed 44 subcatchments and we're done with those. That is actually really nice. So let's now get this next match in here. Probably going to do about the same. And we will leave the furniture out. Okay, so we'll group hug those, group edit. And in this case, we're going to increase the amount of metals processing and food service. And again, if you were doing this in a professional basis outside just learning how to use it, you would put some more effort into getting these fractionations correct. So I think that's going to be 80% residential, 10 and 10. You know, this whole northern part has a lot of metals industry in it. And again, I know that because I'm familiar with the area. If you were doing this just via internet resources, you would you might not detect that initially. See if I can get all the metals in one shot. Yep, and that should be good enough. Edit, group edit, land use, and now we choose proportion. So 25 and 15 is 60. I know 25 and 15 is not 60, but that's what's left over. So now we've got most of the metals, and then we'll put this area as truly heavy industry. I'll do about 50% heavy industry there. So I got the heavy industry there, and this part is all schools and nursing homes and training stuff, and a really good restaurant over here if you like Thai food. If you don't like Thai food, they serve other stuff too. And it's the best Thai food in all of Houston, cooked by, supervised by people from Thailand, but cooked by Mexican cooks. They're really good. It's funny that you wouldn't expect that. And you go to a tortilla place and you have people from Thailand making you tortillas. No, not just kidding. Group edit, subcatchment, land use, and this is going to be largely residential, 80, 15, yeah, 5. Okay, let's hope that we got everything. Let me save that. And I will go back to the input. What I was doing when you all joined the phone call, I was working on this working file because I was afraid I was going to have to manually edit the file because I didn't want to go click on every single subcatchment one at a time. I don't really need your guys' validation on that. You wouldn't want to either. And when we go down here, we've probably got them all. The input structure is fairly simplistic. You give the subcatchment name, land use, and the percent apportionment. And then we will have to go back and we'll just group edit everything. See if I can get the initial loadings have to be provided. And again, it's done by subcatchment ID, pollutant name, and what the loading is. And the rest of this stuff is all used. Oh, that's a mistake. What? So when you get familiar with the input file, you can do stuff like this. So now I'm breaking it in two different dimensions, the graphical dimension and in the text input dimension. So the build-up function is similar to what we did a couple of meetings ago. The wash-off function, I just pulled those out of my datum. And all I want to do is get non-zero values back. And then I'll go do some more reading and determine what more realistic values for these numbers should be. So the only thing that's remaining is I have to leave the loadings. Hopefully we can group edit that. Oh, let me close that file and reload it. Okay, here's the dangerous part of manually editing an input file. So I just made a change to the input file. This computer program doesn't know it yet. So I have to reopen it. Sure. So we've reopened the input file, and the way to tell it is we can go look at the, actually not there, we can go look at the pollutant. Yep. So that was the one change I made, was to that. Now we want to group set everybody and preload our system because we're going to go ahead and just put 10 pounds per acre everywhere. Okay, edit. Group edit. That's a subcatchment input. It's supposed to be an initial loading. That is what I was terribly afraid of. Land use we've taken care of. Crap. Initial pollutant buildup. Click to edit. So maybe there's, okay, it's called initial buildup. Let's try that. Worst case, we will have to manually edit it. INITIA. It's not there, is it? All right. We do have to do this the hard way. So we need to get the numbering scheme of the subcatchments, and then we'll just manually edit the file. So essentially I want to pick up that scheme. All right. Okay, we want to get that into the right structure. So it looks like we go from 3 to 67, and then 83, and then 297. Damn if I know why it does that. So 3, 4, 5. Let's see if it can pick up the pattern. This is not Excel, so I don't know if it will. Sweet. Hopefully there is a 19. Sure enough. And we want to go up to 83 and then start again at, we go to 67 and we go to 83 and then 297. 83, that's 297, 298. So they don't teach you this in swim short courses. So you're getting extra bonus features here. They also don't make you watch them do it live. 60 up to 67. Okay, how do I get rid of all that? Edit. Okay. Sweet. Whoever copied this Excel and got it to work was pretty cool. Thanks to them. And we go up to 393. And I'm going to hopefully it doesn't depend on the spaces being just so. Okay, here goes nothing. And what's the worst that can happen? I break everything. So I want to copy that. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to leave the spaces initially on purpose. Hopefully it can recognize, looks like the pattern's correct. All right, so now we've built our initial case, let's hope. And this is where you, in practice, I would have a notebook next to me, and before I commit the change, I would write down what I just did so that I can undo it. Or more importantly, usually I do it on something called a working file until I get it right, at the risk of making a fool out of myself in front of y'all on recording. I'm going to hope I did it right. So file, reopen that guy. All right, undefined subcatchment. So now we have to go find these subcatchments and fix them or remove them. It says subcatchment 5, okay, does not exist. I'll buy that for $1. So now we go back to our input file, work our way back down to the mess we just created for ourselves. Don't know why there's no subcatchment 5, but it's gone now. What's the other one it told me to kill? 6, 7, and 43. 5, 6. Five, 6, 7, and 43. There really is no 43, huh? Okay, well, I can't argue with the machine. It must know what it's doing. It's a computer after all. All right, so we just reloaded it and it didn't protest. So in principle, we have now parameterized everything. Let's just pick a subcatchment. So it has an initial buildup. The amount is 10, which is what we just programmed into it. I know I didn't actually click on that. It's got the 3 land uses. There are no lid controls anywhere, so all this does is make pollutants and then get it to our bayou. So let's just run this thing and see what happens. Okay, the run was successful with warnings. The main warning is going to be that the conduits are. We can go look at the warnings if you want. See, I think it's the summary one. Nope. Let's try status. Minimum elevation drop, because I have a lot of these conduits are flat. I am kind of upset that it just did the Horton method for infiltration when everything's supposed to be a curve number. There's something wrong with this beautiful program. That's what you get, considering what we paid for it. It's still working pretty good. Let's go down here and just look at our hydraulics. So we get our shark fin, which is what I want. Let's see what the total suspended solids model looks like. So we had 10 pounds per acre. I don't know what that becomes in milligrams per liter. The computer does that for me. Though you and I, we're all quite capable of doing that ourselves, but why bother if the machine's going to do it? So I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of total suspended solids, but let's go get a plot of one. So it will plot that. I have no idea what units it's going to do, but let's just see what happens. Oh, so 180 milligrams per liter TSS, that's not so far-fetched. I think that's quite a bit bigger than anything we ever measured on that study, but cool. And it all seems to come out in a big spike somewhere around hour 6, and then gets down to this boring non-zero value down here. So what happened in this big spike? Because it's explainable based on what our computer model is modeling. We specified an initial buildup of 10. And with the understanding, we'll go read the instructions later to find out what that number should be. So you can visualize this entire watershed had total suspended solids ready to get washed away, just sitting there on the land, and then we rained on it. And we had a wash-off function, and we used the event mean concentration. So it takes from that 10 pounds per acre at whatever the EMC value we specified is and starts depleting that and puts it in the water. And so that's why we get that big spike. You can think of it if you believe in first flush concepts of stormwater quality management, that's what we've just simulated. Now, I personally am not a huge believer in the whole first flush thing. I mean, I can't argue with data. I've collected my own data, and there is a spike at the beginning of a storm after a long period of dryness. But I think there's a lot more going on than we've come anywhere close to. So our spike makes sense. It is supportable based on what the computer program is modeling for us. Let me leave that plot up, and let's go to this conveniently located conduit, which happens to only have one input to it. Let's see what the TSS looks like from just that. I think I set this as a 24-acre, 72-acre contributing area, pretty much everything up in this corner. So let's see what the total suspended solids looks like coming out of that. I would expect it to have that same spike shape, but I wouldn't expect the spike to go as high, but I actually don't know. Oh, it goes even higher. So well, that's kind of cool, actually. So there's a lot of dilution going on. Wow, that kind of makes sense. So coming off that 72 acres, we get up to 250 total suspended solids. That's a big number, which I think is reflective of the distribution of land uses. Mostly residential, which had I gave that a moderate wash-off function. I decided that the metals industry, when water hits it and runs off, it's going to wash off their solids really good. Because I worked as a millwright in college, and we were not the best stewards of our trash at the industrial park we worked at. Whereas the food processing, while they're not very good stewards of their trash doesn't have a lot of solids in it. And then landowners or homeowners, they put used bicycles and broken refrigerators and cars, except for the back seat, which goes on the front porch to sit on and enjoy your mint juleps. Homeowners would put all sorts of trash in the backyard and it washes off. So I gave the homeowners, the residential, a wash-off function comparable to the metals industry, and the wash-off function for solids for the food processing industry, I separated the two in this particular simulation, was lesser. So I think we now have not by no means a calibrated model, but a functioning model that will let us ask some useful engineering questions. And the questions I want you all to explore is, let me get this saved. Okay, that's saved once, and then I'll do the for sure, which I'll make a copy of it. Okay. How come Windows doesn't have a duplicate option? Apple does, and you know, Apple's mostly a piece of crap. They have one thing better than Windows. They have duplicate. So I'm going to have to copy, paste, rename. Okay, what should we call this one? Our backup? And let me take this one out and send it away forever. Got to say goodbye to your file. I want to take the one that said working out so that we don't confuse it later on and think that working means it's actually working. Let me go to this guy and get to the class server and upload the file so that you all have access to it, because then I have a assignment for you. Oh, it remembers the passwords for me. That's really scary. but I'll take it. Oh, that's from an email this weekend. I need Tom Petty in the background singing "The Waiting is the Hardest Part." Okay, so this is what we, there we go, come on, move. Time is it? Oh, it's almost 9 o'clock. The neighborhood, they're starting to stream all their TV, and I had pretty good fiber optic, but then they extended it a few more yards down the alley, and I'm now kind of at the end. There's people between me and the vault box. Okay, so here's what we've been working on. And I'm going to put it into lesson 22. I'm hoping that someone has already gone to the website via Blackboard. I think I have lesson 22 linked via Blackboard. It's important that I do, because otherwise, I'll show you how to find it the hard way. All right, I'm going to put in the drainage base case. And let's give ourselves an exercise. Okay, so download and verify base case works for you as is. Remember, I'll make this an HTML file so you can read it in case you don't remember how to read a interactive Python notebook file, because we haven't done it in a while. Remember to also get the base map. And so what I want to do is, I'll do a classic professor word, explore, which means kind of do something and show me that you did it. Explore use of LIDGI tools on the 3 larger and let's see how much our industry is going to let us mess with their land. Assume you can change up to 25% industrial into some GI You impact the TSS. Okay, let me identify the 3 areas that I'm talking about. Is that enough of instructions that you'll at least have something to go back and look at? So we have this large area right here, which is comprised of subcatchment 15, 331, 18, 16. This right here is actually along a highway. I will stipulate that you can actually use that too as an attempt to control water quality. So you have this area to work with. You have basically the trapezoid right here and the downstream side of it. So you have this area to work with. I wonder if I can draw pictures. We have text. It doesn't have a drawing thing. That's a pity. So you have that area, that large area, and the railroad yards. So those are the 3 places that you can explore green infrastructure. And I'm allowing you to divert up to 25% of the subbasins in those areas to a green infrastructure application. I have a question out of curiosity that I don't know the answer to. So I'll let you all find it out and tell me next class meeting, or actually maybe how about for Thursday night? And that's what we'll do Thursday night. You all present your results to me and we'll all just talk about them. I'm curious if it is detectable if you do stuff upstream or downstream. And if so, what are the relative necessary areas? So we have this large area here and that large area here. This one here is pretty far downstream, so it wouldn't surprise me if we were sneaky that we could have pretty good impact on the total suspended salt. But I don't know how much upstream impact we can have. So treat it as 1, 2, 3, as maybe 5 different cases. Case 1, you do the railroad yards only. Well, case 1 is the base case. Case 2, railroad yards only. Let me write that down because I might actually work alongside with you. It's all dependent on how annoying the undergraduate class is tomorrow. See how I do. How do you do listing? Okay. Case 2, railroad yards. Case 3. I want to call this this is also, there's a big Kroger distributing here. There used to be a furniture distributing center and metals processing. I'm going to call this Kroger Corner. That'd be case 3. Use okay, so you have these 3 places initially. You got a base case that you compare things to. Railroad yards, Kroger Corner, and Hughes Industry, and the Metro Bus Yard is this area right here. and then the obvious combinations. Assess favorable. We're assuming the storm is representative. Or correctly conceptualized. So we'll just use the base information there. I have, like I said, I have no idea if the numerical values are correctly conceptualized for the pollutants. Now that obviously begs the question, what do you mean GI treatments? Well, in the EPA website, there is, whatever this document is, User Manual version 5. There's some discussion around chapter 3 of some different low impact development or green infrastructure things that you can use. So things that would make sense in the railroad yards: bioretention, rain garden, permeable pavement, not so much. You're not going to tear up train tracks for drainage. Infiltration trench and vegetative swale. Roof disconnection makes no sense. Rain barrel makes no sense. Permeable pavement makes no sense in the railroad yards. You move to those other locations, you have different choices. And the author of this has pictures so that if you are like me and can't read, you can look at pictures. Got to find the pictures first. There they are. So these are the tools that are built into SWIM that we can consider. Rain barrels, to me, makes no sense, except maybe on the Hughes facility in the bus barn, you could try to estimate the roof area and rain barrel it. But vegetative swales, the bus barn, definitely permeable pavement, infiltration trenches, and then you could spray paint the roofs green. That's how you get green roofs. Bioretention cells and rain gardens. They're all different names for just a handful of similar processes. Yes, what do you want? She thinks bioretention cells would be the best choice. I think that's what it says. I don't speak really good cat. So explore these and pick a few and try them out and see what impact you can simulate. We'll pretend that the model actually works. I mean, it runs, but it's effective. And find out if you can have impact with just the railroad yards, just Kroger Corner, just Hughes Industries. Obviously, you put all three together, and just using those three areas, let's see what impact green infrastructure tool could affect on the total suspended solids for that community. And let's go take a look at the aerial image, and then I will shut up. Go back to Google Earth. If I zoom out a bit, when you look at the picture, we've got this nice bioretention cell right here at the end, already built for us. You don't get to mess with that. You have just this region right here. Get Kroger Corner located. Kroger Corner is this region in here, and the railroad yards are up here. Those are your three places you get to work with. A lot of this portion where you see all the little houses, that is single family residences. You're not going to be tearing those up and doing any kind of green infrastructure on those. That's not feasible in either a paying for it sense or convincing folks to do it themselves. Actually, I never noticed this area right here. You could probably leverage some of that. Right here is a cemetery, which on the east side doesn't have any stiffs in it yet. So that is usable land too. It's conceivable that you could come up with a way to use these baseball fields as some kind of rain garden bioretention cell and leverage that open space as well as that open space. So with that in mind, that's all I have for tonight. And then that will be a true exercise in integrated hydrology modeling with a water quality aspect. Yes, Mercy, just a little bit and I'll feed you, okay? Is that clear as mud or clear as total suspended solids laden water? So what we'll be looking at is you'll do your base case. Let's suppose this is it. And then we'll do our green infrastructure cases. And we want to see, I imagine I gave enough area that you should be able to get a decrease in these peak total suspended solids. I don't know how much it will be, or maybe actually spread this polluter graph out to the right. I will let you all struggle with that. And I will be struggling alongside you. Okay, so I uploaded the base file. Let me go ahead and turn this into something that you all can read. Okay, now is it going to let me render it as an HTML, or are you going to give me crap because I'm working on the server? It's going to give me crap because I'm working on the server. Let's see what happens. File. Not too bad. I think it killed the, actually the way to test it, let me try my local. This is why I can't keep track of what I'm doing. Oh, it actually even pulls the images in. So you should be able to have everything. There's a bunch of steps here which are not listed in the model scope because I didn't write them down, but you have the exercise. Download and verify, explore impact, assess favorable impact, and then to turn it in, I will have you all prepared to present your findings on Thursday night. That makes sense? I think you should be able to do it by Thursday night. On Wednesday night when we have our normal meeting, and then we'll meet Thursday night. All you can do Thursday night is show me your results. So Wednesday night is when you can ask me questions, or I couldn't get it to work because, and we'll try to diagnose your problems. So you will have to read this document, which is the user manual. There's another document, which is the stormwater quality reference manual. This document is awful, by the way. So what I would suggest you do is get them both in a PDF and download them so you're not stuck with this deceptive EPA website that makes you think you can search through it, but you can't. Because I supposedly just went to page 55 and it does this crap. they should probably hire me as their webmaster, but I would do just as crummy a job, I think. This stuff's easy to complain about. It's actually pretty hard to do. But you'll find this manual and this other one quite useful. And the other resource I've been using is openswim.org. I wouldn't suggest that you necessarily post questions unless you want to get flamed at. But there are a lot of answers in here in the knowledge base that will help. And so you can search a so if you do that, it has, and if you're like me, what you do is you're searching for just an example of how to input the data. That's something I find very strange about the whole swim thing is the training resources are kind of terrible, and I'm part of why they're terrible. That is something I've been working on for several years. So I guess it's good that I know they're terrible. Maybe I can make them better. So that should give you what you need. All right, that's all I have for tonight. Everyone have a good evening, and we will see you on Wednesday night with complaining cats. Bring your pets if you want, and have a great Jawad, have a good day today. Good morning to you, and I will stop sharing, and I'm going to hang up on you all in a second unless there are urgent questions. If there are, ask them.
Dr. Cleveland, can you upload the video of this lecture today? I mean, if there's no problem.
I will do my best to get it done before I go to bed tonight. It takes
Thank you.
It takes an hour for it to render, and I can start the upload and go to bed. I don't know how long it takes to upload, but I don't care. I'll do that when I'm asleep.
Okay, no problem. Sure.
Okay. So, bye-bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr. Cleveland.
Good night.